you have permission to change your mind.
Yes.
So I was having pizza with my friend Corey years ago, and he said, "Hey, do you think you want to be single the rest of your life?" Which is always the question that comes my way, you know. And he watched me hesitate, and then he just stops me and he goes, "You know, you have permission to change your mind, right?" Like, because at that time, my genuine answer was yes, but I never wanted to say yes
Yeah.
because I'm like, but if I change my mind tomorrow, then that makes me a hypocrite, you know? And he was just like laughing, like, you can just say yes. And then if you meet someone tomorrow, then great. And we celebrate you, but that doesn't mean you were less authentic
Yes.
today, you know? And so I think that's really important for anybody in any like career that you're in. Like, my goodness, like, you have permission to change your mind and to pursue other passions, and there's wise ways to do it and all of that, but like, you can keep growing as a human. When you start reading books and when you go back to scripture, like, how about this one? You have permission to change your mind about who God is. Like, what's that quote? I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, God created us in his image, and then ever since we've been returning the favor.
Yeah.
Like, going, this is what God's like. But like, every time you open scripture, be open to like, God, I think I know what you're like, but I've been doing this for a couple of years, you know?
Yeah.
Like, would you show me who you are and help me be humble enough to be like, oh, God's even more beautiful and more loving and more gracious than I even realized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that really has freed me up over the years. Like, you have permission to change your mind.
Yeah. Singleness, I think one of the biggest things, at least from the guy perspective, oftentimes is, you mean I'm not going to have sex?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be in the physical part of that, because I think most men, one of the biggest struggles for guys oftentimes that even come to the ministry a lot of times are dealing with lust or pornography
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's this view of like it's the impossible place to live in. Why do you think we have such a view of that season of life that, oh, there's no way you can maintain that?
Yeah. Great question. I think we have that because it really is a challenging arena. And it really is like, okay, so Jesus was single, and he actually had a really strict sexual ethic when you break it down,
Yeah.
which means if you're trying to follow the way of Jesus as a single person, that means you're not having sex. And that, because sex to Jesus, Matthew 19, he traces it back to Genesis 2. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one. That sex is a gift reserved for the covenant of marriage. That's a really hard reality, especially I've noticed for guys that didn't grow up in it, like just grew up in the world and were single that way. And then you're like, wait, so now you're telling me that I need to
Yes.
stop this until I get married? Those are always like real conversations,
Yeah.
you know?
Or the guy like my journey, single again. Those are the seasons where, this mindset that, oh, well, I've been in this season, so it really doesn't matter. And yet, no, it's still the same, ethic that he's put forward for us in that season. And I think, again, we can justify and have this view that it's just this impossible. But I think that's, for me, it's the twisting, because when you look at Sermon on the Mount, which is where I've been in Matthew, like, it is the impossible. That's what he's calling us to, whether it's the sexual ethic, whether it's the way we talk about others, the way we love our enemies. Like, it's the impossible he's calling us to, because we can't do it on our own.
That's right. That's exactly right. So as speaking of Sermon on the Mount, anyone who's ever looked at a woman lustfully has already
Yeah.
committed adultery in his heart. Like, that is so convicting, for all of us. And the beauty of that is Jesus goes, hey, this brings us back to Peter following at a distance.
Yes.
And Jesus going, hey, I know that's why I'm going through with this. That's why I'm going to lay my life down that you can go free. And so I think it's really important when it comes to purity conversations to embrace it with both grace and truth.
Yes.
The truth being that Jesus does have this high standard for us, the grace being that we're all imperfect people pursuing a perfect God. And then I'd add another truth to that, that he loves you right where you're at, but he loves you too much to let you stay there. And so
Yes.
you can make progress, and you can work towards, like, here's God. Paul says in Romans 12, don't be conformed to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That as you go, God will renew your mind. And so some of those like habits that you have of like, whether it's hookup culture or whatever it is for you, he can actually start to undo that and create new healthy neural pathways. And like, I love it when science catches up with scripture, because scientists
Yes.
these days are telling us like, yeah, actually your thoughts are important.